This is the Daily Tech News for Monday, December 8th, 2025. We tell you what you need to know, give you some context, and try to help each other understand.
Today on DTNS, Jason Howell tells us about Google's Project Aura glasses from Xreal. Justin Robert Young helps us understand Paramount's hostile takeover bid for Warner Brothers. And Dr. Niki tells us about mushroom resistors.
Yeah, just a quiet holiday news day, slow Monday. I'm Tom Merritt.
And I'm Robb Dunewood.
Let's start with what you need to know with that big story. So Google and Xreal today announced its Project Aura glasses. There's also some other news coming from Google about their glasses and VR strategy, mixed reality strategy. Jason Howell got the scoop on all of that. Jason, thanks for joining us.
My goodness, today is not a quiet day, is it?
Not at all. Sorry to pull you in on a Monday, man. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, totally. Usually Mondays are all right, let's see what happens for the rest of the week. But today it's been like to the wall the entire morning.
Well, let's start with Project Aura. What is this one about?
Yeah, so I think the big story for me on Project Aura is I think standard like headset VR and XR has a real problem, which is that it requires a lot of extra, right? Like it's a huge headset. You're blocking yourself off from reality. You're like locking yourself into this incredibly immersive experience. So there's value there, but you're really kind of sacrificing a lot in the process. And then you've got your AI glasses, which are on the other end, right? Like they can do some neat things, but often I think with what we've seen so far, we kind of want them to do a little more. Project Aura, which is a collaboration between Google and Xreal. And so this is a prototype. I don't know when it's going to release. I think sometime next year, is really kind of the middle ground, because what it is it's a binocular kind of glasses approach with a little, a puck-like device. So it's wired to a puck that you would keep in your pocket, similar to what we've seen with some of the other headsets like the Apple Vision Pro, that sort of thing. All of the compute, same compute, by the way, that's in the Galaxy XR headset, is in that puck.
Oh, wow.
The battery, everything's there. So the headset's really light. And essentially the idea here is that you get closer to kind of the vision of augmented reality and the immersive quality of VR in a smaller, more accessible form factor. Sure, it doesn't wrap entirely around your eyes and close off reality, but it gives you a wider field of view than what we've seen in a lot of other smaller solutions, and has the full Android XR experience. So basically, for the most part, what you get out of like a Galaxy XR, you're going to get out of this. And it's just like, I would feel comfortable pulling these out on an airplane. I would not feel comfortable putting a Galaxy XR device on my head in an airplane. I know I'd feel ridiculous if I did that. But with these, like I could actually do that and I'd be okay with it.
And these are lighter. These are quite a bit lighter.
Yeah.
I have the Xreal One Pro, which plug into a phone, right, by USB-C. So they're basically external monitors. This is that, but without the phone. Instead, they gave you a specialized pack, I guess, that is going to deliver the Galaxy XR style experience.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The Galaxy XR experience, that hinges on Android XR as a platform. Apps, games, notifications, cameras, like the whole 9 yards coming in from that puck that you have in your pocket.
So it's a separate device. You don't use this with your phone. You're just using the puck.
Although I have to imagine that there's some Bluetooth syncing for notifications.
Sure. Yeah.
You could probably
Stuff
set
like
that up. But no, it relies on
it's
the
its
puck
own
entirely.
device, but it's not as big as the XR. So what are the trade-offs? What is our field of view? What's the specs on this?
Yeah, 70-degree field of view. You can do full, 6 degrees of freedom tracking and everything. So you can pin displays around your environment, move forward, move back. There's God, is it 2 or 4 tracking cameras? I want to say they told me there was 2 tracking cameras, but I may have transcribed that wrong. Plus an additional camera for, taking pictures, taking video, that sort of stuff. And, it's slightly tinted. So if you go outdoors with these, which personally I would not choose to do, but you know what? Someone's going to do it because it's kind of a mobile type device. It kind of blocks off most of the view in like a sunglasses shade, and then has the displays that superimpose information on top of the world. And yeah, XR2 Gen 2 chip inside. I don't know the size of the battery. I don't know, how much memory or anything like that. But I will say the little puck device looks a lot like a smartphone, but it's not a glass touchscreen. It's like a large touchpad. And so that can be an additional
input device.
But the on device tracking can track your hands the same way that it does on a Galaxy VR headset.
So it sounds like we're not yet to where these are just glasses that you just wear all the time, like you would, let's say the Meta Ray-Bans or Oakleys, but they're getting close. You don't necessarily look like you should be on a ski lift when you're wearing somebody else. Is that basically the what we're getting from this? That they look closer to regular glasses? Because I don't know if I'd want to walk down the street wearing these things.
Totally. I mean, they look closer to regular glasses. If you see the press images that they released, because they didn't allow me to take video or shoot footage of this particular prototype, but they did release some images. If you see them, they look closer to normal glasses, similar, I'm sure, in some ways to what you were talking about, Tom, from Xreal, right?
Like they look very similar to the One Pros. It's just you have the puck, right, instead of
and inside behind the lenses you have that additional kind of display layer or whatever. What they called it was what they said is that this is designed for episodic use, which is like you've got a productivity use case, you've got a gaming use case. I was able to play a tabletop game, by the way, in this, and like that alone was a reason for me to want this because it was so captivating. The really cool thing about that too, the game was called Demio, is my understanding was that the developers didn't even change any code to make it work that well inside of Android XR and in that glasses experience. It just did. And it was really impressive. So this isn't meant for all day wear, not yet. But as you can see, all these these cases are kind of converging, and we're kind of getting to the point to where you can see on the horizon where we get to the point to where the glasses are that and can be that all the time.
So no name, no price, no release date. Sounds like they'll come in lower than the Galaxy XR, of course, but we don't know price. Also not a thing you want to wear around all the time. So not coming for the Ray-Ban Meta line, but Google did have an announcement that is targeted towards that line.
Well, so they showed off something. So I was out at the Google campus a year ago, and they invited me out really early on to test out a couple of prototypes, also a prototype of Galaxy XR when it was called Project Muhan. But they had showed me a monocular and binocular version of their Astra glasses. And so this time I got to go out again, and they had kind of like their updated versions of them, which by all accounts really kind of look very similar from like a fashion type approach. They look like normal glasses, but they did announce that their consumer glasses that have these displays going to be launching in 2026. They're going to, have obviously the single display, the binocular display, if that's what you want. And these are, of course, kind of satisfying what you were talking about, Rob. These are meant to be eyewear first. They're really kind of hoping that these become all-day wear type of glasses. Another piece of news attached to this is that developer kits, which are the monocular version, if I'm not mistaken, that I tested out last week. That is a developer kit that is going to be distributed to developers to get started starting today. So we're gonna start to hear and see more of these out somewhere.
Gotcha. So that is with the display. So we're going to see more glasses next year between Meta, Google, and others that have a bit of a display, not a total augmented reality display, but a bit of a display in there. Yes. And then we also got a little bit of an update to the Galaxy XR, if you're willing to splash down a couple of $1,000s.
I'm really excited about at least one of these updates. I mean, they announced a few things. Photorealistic avatars are now in beta for video calls, so you can get, that kind of experience in the headset, which I got to test, and it was actually pretty cool. PC Connect, so you can wirelessly stream content from your PC at 60 frames per second over Wi-Fi. I was able to stream, I think, an app. I can't remember what the app was exactly, but there was an app, pinned below, and then they were like, and then if you want to open open up a YouTube, to like get a sense of how to use it. And so I opened up YouTube and pulled up a tutorial and pinned it above it, and I could look up and down and everything like that. But the thing that I'm really excited about, and visual annotations coming sometime next year where Gemini can put information on top of things in the real world. But the thing I'm super excited about is something that they showed off a couple of months ago. I was out in New York for the Galaxy XR release, and they showed off, teased ahead to something called auto spatialization, which is a system-wide feature. It adds spatialized depth to any 2D content, and they've got specific approaches and algorithms to determine what is doable or useful in this, which is like videos, photos, games, that kind of stuff. You don't want to mess with UI elements, right? So they've got the smarts to do that, all with 20 milliseconds of latency. And so I sat down, they opened up YouTube. They were like, pick any video you want on YouTube. I picked out the F1 movie trailer 2D, and it auto spatialized with no thinking whatsoever. It just poof, it started playing. It was in full 3D, and it was incredibly convincing. If they had played it for me and I didn't know what I had just done, I would have just kind of thought that it was 3D.
Okay. Yeah, I can't wait. I've got a Galaxy XR, so I have been looking for what it can do, and so it'll be good to get a software update on that and see how that looks.
Yeah, it was really impressive.
I'm looking forward, Tom, to you actually updating your XRs and just letting us know that 3D sounds really cool. 20 milliseconds is really fast. That's really
you don't even at 20 milliseconds, you don't even really notice it. You know what I mean? It just kicks right into gear. Right. So yeah, it's super fast.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying 2026 is the year of smart glasses of all stripes, and it looks like Google has got a product for every stripe.
Yeah, and Justin Payne, I spoke with Justin Payne, who's Google's Senior Director of Product Management for XR, also had a demo with Max Spear, who's product lead of XR at Google, and I have an interview with Justin on the AI Inside podcast, so if you want a full interview, that's over there. But one thing that he said near the end of that, which is kind of similar to what you were just saying, 2026 is going to be a really cool year, but he was like, but I'm telling you right now, just wait for 2027 because we've got some really sick stuff planned. So that's not much to go on. But based on what I'm seeing over the last year and where we are, I just think I think Google's learned a lot of lessons from the Google Glass experience 13, 14 years ago, where they released this hardware far ahead of its time. They didn't have the platform in place. They didn't make it easy for developers to get on board. They're addressing those things this time around, not to mention having Gemini at the core from the beginning. I personally see AI and XR as like peanut butter and chocolate. Like they're so good together. Mm-hmm. And so I'm super excited, if you can't tell.
Yeah. Yeah. And they won't be the only ones pushing this stuff out. No. I agree that 2027 will probably be the more exciting year because look, Project Aura looks cool and it's nice to be able to not have to plug it into your phone, but I'm not sure that it's going to be that much different of an experience than the one I have that plugs into the phone. And that one became sort of a like, oh, it's nice to lay down and watch a movie kind of situation, but not something I would recommend that most people need. And I'm not sure I'm going to feel that much different about this one.
I mean, you will get, I don't know how deep that goes down the like hand tracking and interactive elements.
Yeah. We'll see.
You're going to get a lot more of that with the Aura, which I think is one of the big differentiations, right? Like when you think of kind of the expanded use case of something like the Galaxy XR, you know, and kind of thinking of that as like the pinnacle of like, well, how far can we push this? Aura really is the middle point that says, all right, all that cool stuff, just smaller, you know, and that has me authentically excited because I think it does at that point move into a zone that's a little bit like I could consider sitting down and doing my work on those more easily than sitting down with the Galaxy XR and doing work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's totally different. So there's that.
Your neck will last longer.
Yeah. Although I did feel a little forehead heat when I put those glasses on, for what it's worth. That existed. But yeah.
DTNS is made possible by you, the listener. Thanks to Paul Thiessen, Ali Sanjabi, AB Puppy, and our brand new patrons, Dean, Nathan, and Art.
Ooh, new patrons. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Art. Thank you, Jason. There's more we need to know today. Following Netflix's announcement of an agreement to buy Warner Brothers streaming and studios last Friday, Paramount announced it will try a hostile takeover. This is not terribly surprising to me. It's going to go directly to shareholders to see if it can convince them to take Paramount's offer instead of Netflix's offer. Paramount wants to buy all of Warner Brothers Discovery and says it has made 6 offers total before being declined by the Warner Brothers Discovery board. It says, in fact, David Ellison said, I texted Zaslav and said, we'll go higher. So it said that they weren't done yet. Paramount CEO David Ellison, son of Oracle owner Larry Ellison, says Warner's board did not treat it seriously. He says it did not treat it fairly. So they're going right to the shareholders with a $30 a share. So we didn't raise it in this particular instance for all of Warner Brothers Discovery, and promising that Paramount's offer will pass regulatory scrutiny, whereas Netflix's might not. Paramount's bid is partly backed by sovereign wealth funds from Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, and Qatar, which will forego voting rights. He says getting them to forego voting rights will make it easier to pass scrutiny. That's the only regulatory scrutiny that people talk about when they talk about Paramount's offer. Netflix's offer is talked about with regulatory scrutiny because of the size of the companies involved. Netflix's offer, to remind you, is $23.25 a share, $4.50 per share in Netflix stock, for a total of $27.75 a share for just studios and streaming. That leaves the cable networks as a standalone spin-out company that they could sell to somebody else, probably for less. And yes, a total of $27.75 a share is still less than $30 a share. You're not crazy. But since Netflix's offer includes stock, it's deemed to be worth $31 to $32 a share ultimately, which is why the board accepted that offer. Now, this is a deal. So if Warner Brother backs away and says, you know what, we're going to go with Paramount, they owe Netflix a $2.8 billion breakup fee. And on the Netflix side, if Netflix can't get this deal done, if it can't pass regulatory scrutiny, Netflix is on the hook for a $5.8 billion breakup fee. Signals from the administration, however, are mixed. Before a Kennedy Center event, the president said the deal could be a problem because it would result in a large market share for the streaming giant. He added, I'll be involved in that decision. But then in a social media post blasting 60 Minutes for having Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene on the show, the president criticized Paramount for letting the show air, writing, my real problem with the show was that the new ownership of 60 Minutes, Paramount, would allow a show like this to air. And then typical all caps, they are no better than the old ownership. Who better to assess how these seemingly contradictory wins from Washington will affect all this than Justin Robert Young, host of Politics, Politics, Politics. Justin, thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Tom.
So read the tea leaves from the political side of this, because it does seem like Netflix has a solid deal and Paramount's, making an attempt to steal it from them. And it kind of rests on the regulatory environment.
I don't know whether or not that is the case. That is certainly the case that the Ellisons and Paramount are, which now it's so funny. It feels like 5 seconds ago referring to them as Skydance, and now Skydance has dove into the Paramount suit, and now we're just going to talk about Paramount. But the Ellisons have leaned on this idea that they are in a better position to pass regulatory muster, not only because they are in the market size that they are and they're willing to take on more stuff, but rather they also on the over the top have this closer relationship with Donald Trump, specifically Larry Ellison and Trump. And yet Bloomberg put out a great TikTok piece, not the platform, but the way that stories are described when they're walking minute by minute through big deal, that Ted Sarandos and Netflix believe that the Ellisons are overstating their relationship to the administration, and that when Ted Sarandos has gone to meet with Donald Trump, Trump seemed to believe, quote unquote, that the highest bidder should win and that there shouldn't really be much of a problem in Netflix clearing that regulatory hurdle. I still think that even if, Joe Biden were the president, that Netflix buying as big of a streaming service as Warner Brothers would be something that you would have to look at twice. But I don't know whether or not anybody has the real inside track here, especially because I don't know if people have picked up on this, but the president of the United States is not somebody who seems to have forever friends or forever enemies. This is a carousel that oftentimes moves faster than the American imagination would want it to.
Yeah, a few screeners for advanced viewings of a Netflix project could go a long way to swaying someone.
That's why I joked. I said, Tom, the Truth Social. I said Sarandos hit Trump with the Stranger Things screeners, and the next post is going to be weak. Vecna could not do it.
I don't get too much of a sense of what the Warner Brothers major investors think of this. They've been fairly quiet and I think trusting of the board, which tends to indicate that the investors themselves do agree that the Netflix offer is the better offer because you get the stock, and Netflix stock is more valuable than Paramount stock. Let's face it.
Yes.
And even though Paramount is making an all-cash offer, it's making an all-cash offer that includes the cable nets, which means that you actually are going to not be able to sell the cable nets separately. Now, whether that's a positive or a negative is a whole separate issue. So that's why I said I think this does end up resting on regulatory, unless we find out that one of the investors is swayed by Ellison's amount and says, we think $30 a share cash is a better offer. I think it will come down to whether those investors are skeptical about whether this can pass regulatory scrutiny. And the indications by the stock market were that they dropped the stock of Netflix a little. They dropped the stock of Warner a little because they seem to be skeptical whether it can pass. I don't know what basis they could knock it out on, unless you look at overall dominance of Warner Brothers Discovery as far as just the amount of content that it creates. But while Netflix is a very good streamer, and certainly leads, if you don't count YouTube, it leads in streamers, Warner Brothers Discovery is not. It according to Nielsen, 1.3%, putting it down 8th or 9th, depending on how you count it. So not adding a lot of streaming numbers to Netflix, but definitely adding a lot of cable, obviously adding theatrical, and adding a lot of content, a lot of intellectual property that Netflix doesn't
have. IP. It means that the new Superman movie could eventually be direct to Netflix, which is the other side of this. When you talk about regulatory hurdles, you are talking about the industry for which it would affect. And when you are talking about the industries that these companies primarily affect, it's roughly maybe 2,000 people that all know each other in New York and Los Angeles. And we are talking about the wider world of media creation, media buying, and media airing, right? These are all sort of like disparate worlds that in a bygone era, you had a lot of players that would create things and people would buy it and then they would distribute it to various different channels. Now you are in a collapsing market. What I have heard, at least just anecdotally of talking to people around the worlds of television and movies, is that they would be way happier with Paramount buying them than Netflix buying them, because they believe Netflix is going to just collapse this hive. That every time that you hear Ted Sarandos talking about, we're going to honor those Warner Brothers theatrical movie dates, the unheard suffix to that sentence is, for as long as we can eventually justify by our share price that we need to bring everything back to our platform, because I didn't buy Warner Brothers so the new Harry Potter show could or new Harry Potter movie series that we're going to do wouldn't be direct to Netflix. Batman's going to debut on Netflix. That's the reason why you spend the amount of money for this in the first place. On the Paramount side, they seem to have a commitment to these things. The people that you hear mostly that worry about it, and this I believe was a Semaphore article today, is on the cable side. Because CNN, the Ellisons just bought CBS. The idea would be that would be a combined newsroom, and you would essentially have two different broadcast outlets for the same fire hose. That's who you hear complain about that. And I'll tell you, the sympathetic ear from the White House is more on the glamour side than it is on the cable side. Donald Trump would relish in the idea that cable news gets slaughtered so the share price can remain high, whereas he has a soft spot for the silver screen. You know, this is a guy that wanted to initially go to USC. I just found out. He thought about being in the big motion picture business. He allegedly pushed for Rush Hour 4 to be green lit by Paramount. I think that's part of it. And when you are looking at regulatory issues, there's not a lot of people that are involved in this business. And I think most of them are upset about the idea of Netflix getting it more so than Paramount.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Justin, for helping us kind of understand. We've got the Hollywood wind. We've got the administration weather vane that may point one way or another. And we've got the insurgent tech company. So it is going to be an interesting 12 to 18 months as we let this whole process play
Don't hold
out.
your breath, because you will definitely die. This thing is going to be a slow moving. This would be 2 seasons of Succession. It's a very Succession-y plot, but this would be a 2-season arc.
Fantastic. If folks want to find your political analysis, it is excellent. I highly recommend it. Where should you go?
Politics.com.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
And since Justin and I talked, Paramount's David Ellison, full press mode, giving a press interview, promising that Paramount is committed to a theatrical slate of 30 plus theatrical releases per year. Definitely trying to rally Hollywood and the theater companies to his side. Rob, what do you think? We've got a long time before we have to call ourselves, but with the early bets, what do you think?
It feels like the studios are starting to play the game Highlander. There can only be one. It's like they haven't started fighting yet, but they're feeling itchy. They're feeling twitchy when people get around each other, and they're starting to basically sharpen the swords, and they're going to battle with each other. So it's like Ellison has wanted this company for a while. They've made numerous bids, and for whatever reason, Warner Brothers didn't accept any of them. So now it's like, okay, well, let's see what your shareholders say. What about this? Yeah. So we're in that game now, to where they're going to, they want what they want, and we'll see how the shareholders react.
Yeah, we will indeed. All right, let's get to some quick headlines. These are the kinds of things that are good to know if you just want to understand other news in the future.
Business Insider saw an internal memo from Meta indicating the company's mixed reality glasses, codenamed Phoenix, will not debut in 2026 in order to deliver a more polished and reliable experience.
Oh, man, that takes away from my 2026 is the year of the glasses, but it kind of clears the field for Google, I guess. China's rare earth exports rose 26.5% in November, the first full month since the leaders of China and the United States conducted trade talks that have eased those sorts of export restrictions.
India's Tata Group has signed Intel as a customer for 2 semiconductor facilities being built in the country to explore manufacturing and packaging Intel products for the Indian market.
Oh, nothing India likes better than you making stuff in India to sell to people in India. The European Commission said starting in January, Meta will give users a choice between seeing more personalized advertising by sharing some data or using the services for free, but sharing less data. Something that Meta had already offered European Facebook and Instagram users, but has now implemented in a way that seems like it may have satisfied the European Commission. EC still assessing these changes before closing its investigation.
Yeah, I thought that this is what they already said they would do, so I guess they're now doing it. Bloomberg reports that the head of Apple's chip design division, Johnny Sarugi, told employees in a memo Monday, quote, "I know you've been reading all kind of rumors and speculations about my future at Apple, and I feel that you need to hear it directly from me. I love my team and I love my job at Apple, and I don't plan on leaving anytime soon."
All right. So if you've been hearing the scuttlebutt, Johnny says the scuttlebutt is not true. Is Johnny lying? Probably not. Probably not. Those are the essentials today. Let's dive a little deeper.
Researchers from Ohio State, that's my neck of the woods, Ohio State University, grew resistors out of shiitake mushrooms. What's that and why? Tom and Dr. Niki explain.
Dr. Niki, thank you for bringing me such a delicious memory story.
Yes, it's delicious and crunchy and nutritious. Before I start, maybe you can get us started with the tech of this story.
Sure. So shiitake mushrooms are often used in ramen. No, I'm sorry. You want the memristor part of this.
Yeah.
Memristors is a combination of memory and resistor. I'm not like an expert in them or anything, but it is basically what it says. A resistor, an electrical device that remembers its resistance based on what electrical current passed through it previously. So you can use that to store information even when the power is turned off. So it is a resistive form of memory, hence memristor. There are some IoT devices, some sensors out there that have very low power random access memory based on memristor. Fujitsu makes some of those. But this is still a very experimental technology. The automotive industry has been investigating using it a lot. It's one of those techs that been around for a while and still has a lot of potential, if you know what I mean.
So what we're getting into here is they're taking this novel technology and making it more novel by trying to make memristors out of mushrooms. And
I mean, that would make it cheaper to make, maybe?
That's part of the goal. It's kind of, the researchers have said it's part of a long-term goal of developing a computer that behaves like a brain.
Like in Star Trek Discovery.
I haven't gotten to that part of Star Trek yet, but I'll believe you.
Mm-hmm.
So this team decided to use the shiitake mushroom, not only because they're delicious, but because mycelial networks can be described as behaving somewhat like neural networks in the brain. One, because of their connective structure, and also they can transmit information between each other using chemical signals, which is also one of the ways which synapses work in the brain. In this case, the memristors would act like synapses, meaning the kind of connection hubs between neurons that exchange information. And having this in the form of a microchip would maybe mimic neural activity and would also save power by being on standby when not needed, kind of like in the brain. And the reason shiitake mushroom is because it's a pretty resilient mushroom. We know it well. We cultivate it for food. It's robust and it can resist stressors like getting electrocuted, which these scientists did to it.
This is so cool. The whole mycelial network thing has been explored not just in Star Trek, but in lots of science fiction as a form of transmitting information or creating an intelligence or even evolving into its own form of intelligence. Some people think that mushrooms actually have a form of intelligence that they use their mycelial networks for. So that part of it's fascinating.
Yes.
But then not just making memristors that I'm going to stick in a sensor in my IoT device, but using it to replicate a neural network, which is what we are using to train large language models, right? Like being able to make that more power efficient, work with less power. That's a huge problem that people are trying to overcome. This is fascinating. What did they actually do?
So they cultivated these mushrooms in petri dishes in a controlled environment, controlled temperature and humidity, and then dehydrated them just so they would last longer. Okay. And then they literally just took, home hobby electrical cables and plugged them in and tested them out in different areas of the mushroom and at different electrical currents and did a variety of different circuits, just seeing whatever would work. Yeah. So they were just testing the mushroom properties.
It sounds like those old, 500 projects you can do in your home. And it was just a pegboard with
4 cables and a mushroom.
Yeah. Except this one was mushrooms.
It's like a potato clock, but more complicated.
Yeah. So what did they find?
So, in this case, these like mycelium, which I'll do a little bit of mushroom biology, but this is kind of the underground root-like structure of a fungus, kind of were used as a RAM type component. And they found that the memristor could switch between electrical states at about 5,000 signals per second with 90% accuracy. As a comparison, some of the slowest commercially available memristors perform at about half that speed. So they're not better, but it works, which is really interesting. So it's definitely a work in progress. One of the other interesting things that they noticed is that when they increased the voltage, the mushroom's performance decreased, but they could just fix that by adding additional mushrooms to the circuit.
Okay, so that's interesting, and eventually you're going to hit a limit where you can't add any more mushrooms.
There's only so many mushrooms.
Yeah, but it shows the power efficiency of it. What are they thinking they could use this for to begin with?
So their memrist are made of mushrooms, which they've called the mushrister.
Of course.
It's already 3 words mashed into one now. They're saying it has a performance that's similar to a silicone chip, but it has a little bit more potential. As you mentioned, it could be a lot cheaper. It's scalable. You can grow them as big as you want. I know there's people that make like bricks out of mushrooms and sheets and all kinds of sizes. Like mycelium is very lightweight and very strong, so you could kind of grow it into whatever shape you want. And it's decomposable. It's environmentally friendly. So it kind of opens up the possibilities. The researchers were saying, like, we have the tools to make this into whatever we want at whatever scale, whether that's at home or in a factory. Like, this is pretty straightforward, actually.
Yeah. There have been many attempts to replace silicon as the substrate for chips in the past. Nothing, graphene is still used for lots of things, but nothing has actually unseated it. I'm not going to assume that mushrooms will unseat silicon, but probably like graphene, start to find a niche where they're incredibly useful. And it'll just be fun to say, oh yeah, that chip has a mushroom. It's based on mushrooms.
Yeah. Eco-friendly chip. I mean, I think they're probably like not resistant to water. They're probably flammable in some capacity. So I can assume like there's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't want to do this, but there's probably a niche somewhere where this is really cool.
Yeah, because they are somewhat biodegradable, so you're gonna need to, I guess that's planned obsolescence built right in. So.
We had talked at some point about those robots that bury themselves and decompose. This could be one of the components in the biodegradable robots.
Like that. Oh, you're right. That's perfect for that. Well, Dr. Niki, thank you so much for bringing the mushrooms to our memristers today. If folks want to find more of what you do, in fact, you've got a cool thing going on shortly. Where should they go?
Yes. So on Tuesday, December 9th, my lab is doing an educational live stream. We're going to be talking about goats for probably 12 hours. We'll see how long we make it.
Wow.
7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central. You can find all of the streaming links at nicoleackermans.com/live. We are basically doing a LAN party where I just need a lot more data. So we're all going to stuff ourselves into a room and collect and watch videos of goats headbutting and collect data and talk about our research. And so please come and say hi.
It's a lamb party.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you, Niki.
Thanks for having me.
Once again, if you want to hear Dr. Niki talk headbutting research and more, head to nicoleackermans.com/live from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central, Tuesday, December 9th.
Yeah. And don't worry. I'm sure everything will be fine with using mushrooms inside of PCs. Right, Rob?
Dude, just somebody give me some assurance that we are not about to start The Last of Us. Those kind of things scare me. You covered the mycelial network and Star Trek. What about The Last of Us? That seems dangerous. Mushrooms chasing me down the street.
Yeah. Don't put them in the robots. That's what I say. Well, folks, a reminder that if you're still looking for some good holiday gifts, we have lots of great DTNS stuff. Some of it with the really cool DTNS logo that Len Peralta made for us. Some of it with a really interesting logo, really cool retro logo that Scott Johnson made for us. We've got Len's holiday art. If you're looking for some holiday stuff, there's a techie Santa art that he did. Go check it out. We've got all kinds of cool stuff at dailytechnewsshow.com/store.
We end every episode of DTNS with some shared perspectives. Today, Robb B has thoughts after listening to our weekend interview with Mike about flock surveillance cameras.
Yeah, we got a lot of good response to that interview. Rob is kind of representative of these. Robb B writes, "This was a good show. Those cameras are still not something I love, but it's good to be reminded of what they can and can't be used for legitimately. My concerns are still around when they are misused, abused, or data is stolen. Most police, I think, want to try and do the right thing, but they, like everyone else, are humans, and humans will still do bad things. Those are the edges I think need to be protected. Thanks for helping us keep a good perspective, and thanks to the guest for trying to help educate us and being honest about the concerns."
So yeah, these things, I think the headline is what makes the news, but you have to really dig into what actually are they doing, what data can be infiltrated, those type of things. I think you have to dig beyond just the headline a lot when it comes to stories that are coming out these days. And
I really liked how Mike tried to set people up to say, like, look, if you are concerned about these, here's who to talk to, and here are the best practices that should be being followed that you can follow up on and stuff like that. It was very informative. So thanks again to him for being willing to come on and talk about it.
Yeah. So folks, we love to know what you're thinking about. So if you've got some insights into a story, please share it with us at feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
Big thanks to Dr. Niki, Jason Howell, Justin Robert Young, and Robb B for contributing to today's show. Thank you for being along for Daily Tech News Show. You keep us in business. If you find all this stuff valuable, this whole cast of characters today, become a patron. Patreon.com/DTNS.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.